Pushing Back the Shadows, support and awareness for mental health. Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Pushing Back the Shadows podcast. I can't quite believe we've hit 25, but do you know what? I'm really thrilled that you guys are supporting us and that you're listening, and you help me keep going with what I do. Now, for episode 25, I'm afraid I've got a dirty word for you. Do you want to know what it is? Suicide. That's right, I said it. Suicide. This episode itself is going to be talking about suicide. So if that is a trigger for you, there is a trigger warning here. But I am going to be talking about suicide. And really, it's something for friends and for family, because it's going to be more like a suicide watch. It's something I've heard about, suicide watch. It's something that people do to kind of help those who are struggling with those suicidal thoughts. And realistically, people who are struggling with depression, with bipolar, even with anxiety and other mental health struggles, suicidal thoughts are something that do crop up. And they do. It's something doctors warn about, something that doctors are always asking about, have you had any suicidal or self-harming thoughts? But a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. And by a lot of people, I'm referring to you guys, the friends and the family members of the people who would be struggling. Because realistically, it can be quite hurtful, but I'm trying to support you here. Why are you thinking of killing yourself? And people don't understand it. Let me tell you one very simple thing. Your brain is like a supercomputer. They say it's more powerful than goodness knows how many supercomputers, but that your brain is very powerful. Imagine for a second if somebody insulted you. How badly does it hurt when they say something cruel to you? And that's somebody else's brain coming up with that. Imagine now what your brain can do. Your more powerful than a supercomputer brain turning itself against you, coming up with unwanted thoughts, unwanted feelings, and just think how that affects you for a second. And now, imagine that those unwanted thoughts, those thoughts that you don't have much control over, are telling you that people would be better off without you. That your life is not worth living. And that people would be better off if you were dead. Because realistically, ladies and gentlemen, that is what suicide is. It's not saying, do you know what, I want to hurt other people, I want to kill myself. The hurt is a byproduct of suicide. See, for most people who are experiencing those suicidal thoughts, it's not that they set out to cause you pain. It's that they want to release themselves from their struggle. It's that they want to release you from the burden that they feel they are being. Because a lot of people with mental health struggles do feel as though they are a burden to other people. They truly, honestly believe that you would be better off without them. As heartbreaking and as sad as it is, that is how they perceive their lives to be. Not worth living because they are hurting other people. A couple of people that I've spoken to have been of the opinion, if they kill themselves, people will grieve for a little bit of time and then they'll get over it and their lives will be so much better. And with the cloud that depression, that bipolar brings, it's hard to see the falseness of that statement. Realistically, they don't see that actually your lives will be worse off without them. They think of suicide as kind of the only way out, and really that is what it comes down to as well, that they perceive it to be the only way out. They've tried everything else, nothing seems to be working, they feel like they're getting worse, and they want to get out. When I used to go and see the mental health worker at my doctor's practice, he asked if there'd been any suicidal thoughts, any thoughts of self-harm, and I said, yeah, do you know what, I do get some of the thoughts come up. And he said, do you know what, that's good. That is good. Your body, your mind, is looking for a way out. All we have to do is provide it with different alternatives. And I'll come on to that in just a moment. But first off, as I said, this episode is going to be about Suicide Watch. Some of the things that you as friends, you as family members, need to be looking out for in that person who you know who is struggling with mental health issues. And I've got 9 different reasons here, and we're going to go through them, and we're going to see where we get. You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. 9 warning signs of suicide then. Now these come from a variety of different mental health websites like Mind and Samaritans. These are some of the tips that they recommend you look out for. So number 1 is constantly talking about being a burden. And I've mentioned this just now. A lot of people experiencing those suicidal thoughts will feel as though they are a burden to other people. And it's something that's quite hard to shake. My partner apologizes constantly every time she has a depressive episode or a panic attack. She feels like she's making me worse. She feels like I shouldn't have to deal with the things that she goes through when she has these kinds of episodes. And even though it's one of those things that, do you know what, I love her, I would do for her, it's still something she apologizes for. She feels as though she's a burden. And a lot of the time, people who feel like they are a burden will want to find some way of alleviating that pressure, alleviating the stress of being, as they perceive it, a burden on their friends. The next one is increased use of drugs and or alcohol. And it's one that's very applicable to specific people rather than a general one, because not everybody will go down this route. There are people who will use that as kind of a coping mechanism. I know 1 or 2 people who, when they feel depression or anxiety calling, they will get absolutely drunk. I believe the expression will be drunk as a skunk or stinking drunk, whatever it is, they will get to that stage. And again, it's something to be on the lookout for. Not everybody will do it, but some people do. And number 3 is withdrawing from everyone around them and trying to isolate themselves. And that one in itself is, as far as I perceive it, quite a common one. Because if you think about it, if they already perceive themselves to be a burden, they're going to want to try and ease themselves out of your life so that eventually you'll forget about them. And then it makes it easier for them to just disappear. Because if they've already withdrawn themselves, if they've isolated themselves completely so that nobody really keeps in touch, nobody really notices that they're not there, then they can say, all right, nobody's bothered, I can just go ahead and do this. So that's definitely a big one to keep a watch for. Now the next one, again, I think it does vary, but it says sleeping too little or sleeping too much. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of trouble getting out of bed in the mornings. The fact that I'm now on quetiapine, which is like a mood stabilizer, and that does cause drowsiness, really does not make it very easy. I mean, the other day I was having trouble sleeping, so without even thinking, I took my sedative, my Zopiclone, and the two of them combined to the point where when I woke up, I had about 5 minutes of kind of that feeling where you're trying to wake up, and I went back to sleep. So it does depend. You have a lot of things that you've got to take in mind. Is it part of their normal tendencies to sleep a lot, to sleep a little? Is it part of their medication? What is it that's making them sleep a lot or a little? And if it's something that can be attributed to something else in their lives, then maybe it's not quite so much of a cause for concern. Sleeping too little is definitely more serious than sleeping too much, as far as I'm concerned, because not getting enough sleep can actually change the way that your brain's perceiving things. It can alter that judgment, cloud your thoughts, and so on, and it can lead to increased thoughts of self-harm or suicide. But with sleeping too much or sleeping too little, and really this does apply to the majority, if not all, of these signs that I'm going to talk about, it's something that's out of the ordinary. If it's not normal for them, then yeah, it's cause for concern. Same with withdrawing from everybody else, or constantly talking about being a burden, or increased use of drugs or alcohol. If it's not in their normal routine, not part of who they are, then flag it up. Flag it up. Really, if it isn't normal, it could be a problem. And that's not saying everything that's not normal is a problem, but it's better to kind of err on the side of caution. And I'll talk about that more in just a moment. Pushing back the shadows, support and awareness for mental health. So number 4 comes as kind of a behavioural change. It lists examples of like becoming aggressive, irritable, reckless, or angry, and those in itself, they are a sign of some of the other mental illnesses like depression and bipolar. It is possible for our moods to swing. Mine certainly does. I know that on a regular basis, and this is where I've talked a lot about how I believe that actually my depression could be bipolar, because of how effectively how wide that mood pendulum, if you like, swings. It goes from really, really high to really, really low, and it's quite difficult in that sense. But again, it's going back to what I said about if it's not normal for them. So behavioural changes, if it's out of the ordinary, it could be a sign of a more serious problem. It also adds that sudden mood swings and making shifts from being really sad to being exceptionally happy, that can also be a warning sign. And granted, that's also a warning sign of bipolar in itself, because bipolar, by definition, is kind of categorized by those vast mood swings. But it's something that if it's not part of their normal, kind of normal personality, then it could be a sign of that bigger problem. One of the more physical cues that you can give off is being less concerned with keeping up their physical appearance. And it's one of those things that depression does tell us that, you know, why bother? Why make the effort? You know, there's no point to it. And some of that's okay. But if it gets to a certain extent, if it goes on for a longer period of time, then perhaps there is that warning in there. Because you might be thinking, well, I'll be gone soon, what does it matter? There's no point. You know, or what's the point of looking after myself when all I'm going to do is die at the end of it? And it sounds quite callous to say that, but really that can be something that's going through somebody's head. Another sign could be giving away things that were known to be important to them. If they've got like a prized possession or a treasured possession, giving it away, letting go of that, could be a warning sign of suicide. Because what they're doing is effectively they're giving up their attachments to this world. They're giving up the things that would be keeping them here. And it ties in a lot to how they withdraw from everyone and they isolate themselves. It's giving them that excuse, that reasoning to let go. It's stopping them from having something that will keep them here. And it's something to look out for. Now, number 9 that it does mention is kind of, they mention committing suicide and then they brush it off, almost like it's a joke. And that in itself can be a big warning sign. If they do things like that, that's where the alarm bells should really be triggered. You see, some people will actually talk about it as almost like a bit of a cry for help. Granted, sometimes it's for attention, but again, it's better to err on the side of caution. And if they're talking about it and then just kind of brushing over it, glossing over it as though it's some kind of joke, chances are they are thinking about it seriously. Now, I've gone through all 9 signs that these websites like Mind and Samaritans list. And there are others in there. It is subjective to every person, which in itself makes it quite hard to identify when somebody's actually feeling that way. But I challenge you, and this is one thing that I strongly believe, whenever somebody does die from suicide, a lot of people say, well, there were no warning signs. And I'd like to challenge that. The warning signs are always, always there. It might not fall into the category of the 9 signs that I've just covered. It might be that it is something different. And sometimes, do you know what? People aren't going to talk about it. And that is where you as friends and you as family members have to step in and say, look, is everything okay? If you have a concern, it is far better to voice it than to leave it unsaid. And realistically, I've talked about this in the onus, it's better for you to take the ownership and you to be proactive in getting this sorted than to expect the person who's struggling to say, okay, yeah, look, you got me, I'm having suicidal thoughts. Because some people won't. Some people will not talk about it, and we need to be proactive. But what happens if they say, yeah, I'm struggling, I'm having suicidal thoughts? What do we do then? Let's take a look at that, see what we can do to help them. You're listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. So what do? We've either recognised these warning signs, or somebody that we care about, be it as a friend or as a family member, is experiencing those suicidal thoughts. What do? Now, first port of call, there are a lot of networks out there, a lot of people who are willing to support people who are going through suicide. You have people like Samaritans who deal with these things on a regular basis. The phone number for them would be 116 123 if you're in the UK or the Republic of Ireland, and they are there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and the number is free to call. They do also say that you don't have to be suicidal to call them. And realistically, if you're a friend, if you're a family member, you can get in touch. You can ask for that support. You've also got medical professionals like your doctor, and emergency appointments can be available. And then you've got the other charities, like you've got Mind, you've got Mental Health UK, loads and loads of other resources. So if you're a friend or a family member and you know somebody who's struggling, you can either get in touch with them yourself, or you can try and point the person who is struggling in their direction. And they'll talk to them, they'll help. Samaritans, I know, are really, really good. I've heard a lot of good stories about them, and they will help somebody who is struggling. But what can you, as a friend or as a family member, do? One thing that I've found particularly helpful is reminding them that you're there for them, maintaining that connection, talking to them and reassuring them that you're not going anywhere, that you are there to help them. But be careful. When you're doing that, be careful not to put any pressure on them to get better. It's got to be done in their time, not yours, theirs. Because the journey that they're on, the road that they're walking, that is their journey, their road, and it has to be done in their time. Rushing them through it is not going to help them. So however long it takes, and that's the point, you have to be prepared to be in it for the long haul. But however long it takes, you've got to be there for them. And remind them that you're there, that you will help them. Like that mental health guy at my GP's practice said, it's good that they're having those suicidal thoughts because their mind is looking for a way out. We just have to provide them with the alternatives. Encourage them to seek that help, be it from a charity, be it from a GP, whatever it is from. Encourage them to seek that help. And stick by them as they undergo whatever treatment or whatever support somebody else provides them with. Reassure them that they're not a burden. Because they're not, are they? It's something that's quite difficult, something that we need to be aware of. That we're there for them. Something that we need to remind them. But let them know they're not a burden. Part of it comes from them challenging those thoughts themselves. Remembering that they are worth something, that they do have a place. But at the same time, some of it comes from you challenging those thoughts with them. And by challenging them, I don't mean saying things like, oh, don't be so stupid, you're needed here. Because that will make them feel worse. But remind them that you care. Remind them that their life matters. Remind them of some of the things that they might have to live for. Be careful not to lump any pressure on them, but just gentle reminders. Another thing which is quite interesting to know, you can call Samaritans, or they can call Samaritans, but you can also arrange for Samaritans to contact them. And it can be done anonymously. They won't tell the person that you've contacted Samaritans on their behalf if you don't want them to. They also will not share anything that they talk to that person about. It is completely confidential. But one thing they will tell you is whether or not they've actually managed to reach the person that you're concerned about. And the best part, they can do it by phone, they can do it by email or letter, and they'll contact them based on the details you provide and what you suggest. It's something to bear in mind. But as I say, it's something that they will do both for you as a friend and family member or for the person that you're concerned about. But realistically, if you're picking up on these signs that Samaritans recommend or mind, don't go through it alone. Get in touch with somebody, ask them what you can do, ask them for the support that they need, and refer the person on. But please, don't put the onus on the person who is struggling. Be proactive. Ask them if they're struggling, if they need any help. Yep, chances are maybe they're going to say no, but that's where looking for some of these signs comes into it. You know the person that you're supporting. You know what's normal for them, and you will be able to pick up on anything that's not normal. So be vigilant. Have a look. And effectively, your mantra in this should be, if someone is talking about suicide, always take it seriously. Don't be afraid to approach someone who you think isn't coping. Just showing them that you care will be a positive step towards supporting them. I'm going to say that again. If someone's talking about suicide, always take it seriously, and don't be afraid to approach someone you think isn't coping. Just showing them that you care will be a positive step towards supporting them. Now, as I always say, if you have any questions or concerns, you are more than welcome to get in touch. Be that with myself or with Cheryl, our editor. Contact details are all on the website, www.pushingbacktheshadows.com. My email address is alex.davis, that's IES, at pushingbacktheshadows.com. And we'll be happy to either provide answers where we have them or point you in the direction of someone who does. Because that's the thing, not everybody's got the answers, but we do get through it all together. So take care of yourselves, guys, and I just want to give a quick shout out to our patrons who, through their ongoing support, have actually made getting this far possible for us. So those include Sam, Louise, Katie, Alex, who is one of our latest patrons. We also have Yi, we have Cheryl, and those are our top patrons. We thank you guys for your support. Without you guys, I don't think that we could be doing the work that we do. Take care, guys. You have a good week, and I shall catch you next time. You've been listening to Pushing Back the Shadows. To find out more, head over to pushingbacktheshadows.com and hit subscribe to get all of our latest updates straight to your inbox. Alternatively, connect with us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/AlexDavisPBTS, or you can visit us on Twitter at AlexDavisPBTS. Enable Pushing Back the Shadows to continue supporting people in the mental health community, their friends and their family. By pledging just $1 a month, you could help us to continue supporting people with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar and other mental illnesses. You can also unlock exclusive rewards, behind the scenes, sneak previews of upcoming posts and much, much more. So head over to www.patreon.com/AlexDavisPBTS to find out more.